Hi, this is Mrs. Rodriguez with another lesson video. Today we're looking at how to use the scale factor to find missing lengths. So there's two different ways we can do this. The first way is to calculate the scale factor and then divide or multiply it to the given with the length given. Or the second way is to write the two ratios and cross multiply. Now, are there more than two ways? Yes, but these are the two ways that I'm going to show you how to do this today. Now, let's review. The scale factor is new divided by original. Okay? Let's go ahead and take a look at our first problem. Calculate the scale factor and then divide or multiply it with the length given. Now, here, for our first option, we're going to work with scale factor. So scale factor equals new over original. The first image will always be the original. The second image will be the new. Okay, so when you see problems like this, it's always the first one's the original, the second one's the new. If these two images were one on top of the other, the top one would be the original, the bottom one would be the new. Okay, now the sides that we have to work with is the top. We have both tops of each rectangle given to us. We have 15 and we have 10. Now, notice we also have a 15 down here, so that just means that it's going to be 10 down here, but we don't need to worry about that. And then you can see that we know it's 24 on the new one for the left side, and we don't know what the left side is on the original. So that's what we're looking for. Okay, this is going to be our x. This side here will be x. And we already know that 24 is the length for the left-hand side on the new diagram. All right, so let's get started. Oops. The scale factor is new over the original. Well, we have the 15 and 10, so that's what we need to use. Okay, they're always going to give you a side that works for both images that have a number. So that's what you're going to use. Now, the new is 15. The original is 10. So it's going to be 15 over 10. Now, I can simplify this because I know that 10 goes into 15 one time, and you get a remainder of 5 over 10, which equals 1.5 or 1.5, however you want to think about it. So that means my scale factor is equal to 1.5 or 1.5. Now that we know the scale factor, we can easily figure out what x equals, because the scale factor times x gives us 24 in the new image. Well, we can't multiply the 1.5 and x because we don't know what x is, but we can go backwards and we can divide 24 by 1.5, and that will tell us what x equals. And 24 divided by 1.5 equals 16. So x equals 16. Now, you can always check your answer by going, okay, if the scale factor is 1.5, that means 10 times 1.5 equals 15. Is that true? 10 times 1.5, yes, equals 15. Then you can check your x by going, okay, well, is 16 times 1.5 24? And yes, it is. So we are good to go. Okay. Now, let's take a look at another one. Here we have 1215, right? And then x and 25. So this is going to be our x again. This is our original because it's the first one. And here is the new. We remember that scale scale factor equals new over original. So now we got to figure out what sides we can work with. So it looks like now we have numbers on the same side for the tops of the new and the original. So we can work with the top lengths. Okay, and we get 15 and 12. So the scale factor is going to be the new 15 divided by the original 12. 12 goes into 15 one time. You get a remainder of 3 over 12, and that simplifies to 1 3/4. Oops, I'm sorry. No, it doesn't. 3 goes into 3 one time. 12 divided by 3 is 4, so it's 1 1/4. Whew. Okay, now that we know that the scale factor, that means that scale factor also had to have worked to make x turn into 25. So that means 1 1/4, or if you're planning on using a calculator, that equals 1.25. Okay, you can use either way. We'll go with the 1.25 times your x makes it to 25. Because remember, the scale factor is the number that the original side had to multiply with to equal the new side. So 1.25 times 12 gave us 15. So that means x times, oops, I shouldn't have used an x sign for multiplication. So we're going to do times with a dot. So that means x x times 1.25 equals 25. So we don't know what x is, so we can't multiply it with 1.25, but we can go backwards and get x by taking the 25, the answer, and dividing it by 1.25. And 25 divided by 1.25 equals 20. So that means x equals 20. Now, we can always check our answer by seeing does it work. Is 20 times 1.25 equal to 25? And yes, it is. Okay? And then is 12 times 1.25 equal to 15? Yeah, it works for both. So 1.25 is the scale factor, or 1 1/4, and the length of x is 20. All right, so that's how you find the missing length when you just use scale factor. Now, another way you could do this is by remembering that scale factor is actually a ratio, right? It's a ratio between two images. So for the last example, this image, the original shape was enlarged by 1.25. So that means the ratio is 1 to 1.25. So if we remember its ratios, we can set them equal to each other and cross multiply. Okay? Now, how do we do that? Well, you still have to work with the same sides. So if we have the tops, we have the tops, okay? And then if x is on the left side, then that means it goes with the left side of the second image. All right, now keep in mind, this is still the original, and this is the new. Okay, now, for the ratios, it's 1.25 bigger, but what is? Each side. So our ratios are going to be by sides. So 15 over 10 would be the ratio for the top length, and we could set that equal to the side lengths, which would be 24 for the new. Remember, new's always on top, and the original is x. This is going to be our x. Okay, so if we've forgotten, don't forget, scale factor equals new over original. Okay, so now I have my two ratios set up. Now remember, the scale factor has to work for all the sides and be the same number. So whatever times 10 that equals 15 has to be the same number times x. So that's why these two ratios are the same, because when you divide the new by the original, it equals the scale factor. And the scale factor has to be the same for all sides, so that means 15 over 10 has to equal 24 divided by whatever x is. Okay? They have to equal each other because it has to be the same scale factor. Now, how do we cross multiply? Well, once we have our two ratios set up, we can cross multiply by multiplying the numbers across from each other. So that means the x times 15 and the 10 times 24. Oops. So let's go ahead and I'll choose orange. So 15 times x, we can write it just as 15x. We're going to keep the equal sign in the middle, and then we have 10 times 24. Okay, well, we already multiply. I mean, 15x is just 15x. 10 times 24 is 240. That means some number times 15 gives us 240. We don't know what number to multiply with 15, but we can go backwards and we can figure out x by doing 240 divided by 15 should give us x. And 240 divided by 15 equals 16. Okay, so you can set up your two ratios, which are your scale factors, right? Your new over original, pick two sides, write your two ratios, and then cross multiply and solve. You will notice x equals 16, and in our first example, that's the same answer we got. X equals 16. Okay? Now, let's try the other example that we did before. So here we're back to the 15 and 12 and 25 and x. This is going to be my x. Now remember, the scale factor has to be the same for all the sides. So we're going to pick sides, right? I'm going to pick, this is going to be the red side, the two left-hand sides of the images. They're going to go together for our ratio. And then I'm going to pick the two top parts. They go together, and that's going to make our second ratio. So there are the two numbers for each ratio that we're going to use to cross multiply and solve. And then all you have to remember is, and I'm going to go ahead and put a line here so we don't get confused with the previous problem, that the scale factor equals new over original. And the first image is always going to be your original. The second image is going to be the new. Okay. Well, now that we know that, we can set up our two fractions. We have our two ratios. We have the first ratio and we have the second ratio. Remember, ratios are just fractions. So for the first ratio, the new is 15, the original is 12. Bam, there's our first fraction. For the second ratio, we have 25 for the new and x for the original. Bam, our second fraction. Now we're ready to cross multiply and solve. So remember, cross multiply means you're going to multiply the numbers across from each other. Okay, multiply the numbers across from each other. This is going to give us 15 times x right? 15 times x equals 12 times 25. Now, 15x, we just write it, or 15 times x, we just write it as 15x, and 12 times 25 equals 300. So this means some number times 15 equals 300. We don't know what that number is, so we can work backwards and divide 300 by 15. 300 divided by 15 is 20. And that's going to be our missing side. X equals 20. And if you look at when we did it previously, we got 20. X equals 20. Okay? So you have options. Are there other ways to do this? Yes. But here's two ways. And you have options. You can either calculate the scale factor and then divide or multiply to get the length. In this case, the image got bigger, so we took 25 and divided by the scale factor, and we got 1.25, or 15 divided by 12, 1.25. But you take that 25 divided by 1.25 and you get 20, right? Or you can set up your two ratios, your two fractions, okay? Coordinating sides make up your ratio, right? The same sides on both images make up your two different fractions, and then you can cross multiply and solve for x, and that will give you your missing side too. And then if it were to ask for scale factor, well, what times 12 and 20 gives you 15 and 25. Well, remember, new over original, your ratios. You can just do 15 divided by 12 or 25 divided by 20, and that will give you the scale factor. Okay? So that's how you find the missing sides, using scale factor or two ratios equal to each other, and you cross multiply and solve. Okay? As always, if you have any questions or need additional assistance, feel free to make an appointment with me for office hours. Hope you have a great day. Bye.